Hi, I'm Nisha DeGaring, host of Good Things Utah, and I've been a longtime supporter of Todd's Beliefcast. I hope you find inspiration in the courageous stories shared by the amazing people Todd features on his show. The guests serve as shoulders for us to stand on, allowing us to see a little further and cultivate belief in oneself. Remember, you have the dignity and power to change. I encourage you to keep striving and believing in yourself. Enjoy today's podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Todd Sylvester, the host of the Beliefcast. I am honored to welcome Britt Reid on my podcast today, a man whose story reminds us that redemption is always possible. Britt is a former Super Bowl champion coach for the Kansas City Chiefs, where he was coached under his father, legendary head coach Andy Reid. On the outside, he had everything what people would call a dream life, but beneath the surface, Britt was fighting a long life battles with substance abuse and alcoholism. That battle ultimately led to a devastating consequences, including prison time. But what could have been the end of his story became the turning point. And today, Britt is living a life of service, recovery, and hope. I'm just so impressed with Britt on so many levels. You guys are going to love him. You're going to laugh. You're going to cry. You're going to be inspired. So thanks for tuning in. And Britt, thank you for being here today with all of us.
Todd, thank you for the opportunity, man. I really appreciate it.
You betcha. Well, before we get into the meat of this, because there's so much to talk about here today, do you mind starting off? Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and maybe a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so I grew up as a coach's kid. My dad's been a football coach my entire life, and that can be similar to growing up in a military family. We moved a lot. I lived in 6 states by the time I was 14. I'm one of 5 kids, and we're all about 2 years apart, and every kid is born in a different state. So that kind of gives you an idea of how often we were moving. But, I grew up in a very religious household, and great loving parents, very involved. Early on, when my dad was coaching in the college ranks, he used to take me and my older brother on recruiting trips, and we'd go to the college football camps in the summer and run around. I mean, I had a great childhood, great upbringing, and I kind of had the American dream in that regard. Lived in some great places, and very, very tight-knit family.
Yeah, wow. What kind of kid were you? Obviously you got yourself into some trouble, but before all of that, you come across as a very well put together, confident, person. Was it that way when you were growing up too?
Not so much. I struggled, growing up. I had a learning disability. I had, reading and spelling issues, and so I was in modified classes, and, it always kind of bothered me that I had to go to these special classes. And, and so, I always felt like I was a little bit different in that regard. But the thing that kind of helped me was sports. I always excelled in sports. I was, played baseball, football, wrestled, threw shot put and disc, and, I love doing sports, and so that brought some normalcy and some acceptance in my life. I grew up a very, I guess you would say, rambunctious kid. My mom always tells stories about I was the wild child. If she turned her back for 1 second at the park, I was up on the tallest thing, climbing trees. There was no fear there, which I think helped me in sports, and that was kind of my safe haven, was because I struggled in school. I could go out onto the football field, baseball diamond, whatever it was, and I felt accepted because I excelled in those sports. And so that being said, I think sports also helped drive my determination, my grit, my work ethic to excel eventually in school. So I ended up working really hard to get out of those modified classes. Okay. And, by the time I got to middle school and high school, I was kind of out of those classes and ended up being a really good student.
Wow. Yeah. Again, I think one of the qualities you have, because I've heard this from other people that know you really well, you're a very hard worker. And I think that obviously plays a part on why you did so well. And you took these challenges and said, hey, I'm going to overcome them and be better. And it makes, it's no surprise, you're climbing walls and this and that, which makes you even better at sports, because kind of like that no fear, I'll do anything.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I work with a lot of sports clients who have been, in high level areas of, whether it's basketball, baseball, or football. And they kind of say the same thing you were saying, like, man, on the field or on the court, man, they felt like invincible, but off the court or off the field, they struggled like with just, who they were, maybe even confidence in, life in general. And so when I hear what you say, and it's pretty common, it feels like among a lot of sports, figures.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
The court, the field, it's kind of the safe haven.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's get right into it. You were helping your dad coach the Kansas City Chiefs, and everyone knows how successful your dad has been. I mean, he's arguably the best coach in the country of all time. I mean, it's amazing what he's done with that team, and you've been a part of that. And again, from the outside, like we said in the beginning, man, you look like you had it all and life was good. But obviously you were struggling internally with a bunch of things. And so do you mind, let's get into the meat of your story and kind of tell our listeners what happened?
Yeah. I mean, I did have it all. I was literally living a dream, and I had the world in the palm of my hands. I mean, I remember we won that Super Bowl, that first Super Bowl down in Miami, and I'm down on the field, up on stage. I got my son on my shoulders, confetti falling down, and the Lombardi trophies being passed around, and I literally had the world in the palm of my hand. And we make it back to the Super Bowl the following year, and it was, obviously that game didn't turn out so well for us, but
Right.
Tom Brady with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they put it on us. But I didn't even make it to that game. 3 days before the Super Bowl, I was at the office working late, and then I decided to have a couple drinks and make the terrible decision, get behind the wheel of my car and drive. And so, I'm getting on the highway, and I'm looking out the windshield, and I take my eyes off the windshield, and I look in the side rear view mirror, and I end up hitting a car. And I actually hit two cars that night, really. And so, 365 days, really 367 days from me holding up the Lombardi trophy down in Miami, I found myself on the side of this highway with two mangled cars and the lifeless body of this little girl laying on the bed of my truck. And everything that I had worked so hard for came crashing down in an instant. And I remember sitting on the side of that highway when the paramedics were working on the little girl. And for a long time, I told myself my addiction never affected anybody, right? I wasn't hurting anybody. The only person I might have been hurting was myself, But that night, February 4th of 2021, I could no longer deny the fact that my addiction was affecting other people. I mean, it was laying on the bed of my truck. And so it was awful. And, I should have gone to jail that night, but I had severed my femoral artery in the accident. And so I got rushed to the hospital. And the day I was supposed to leave to go coach in my second Super Bowl, I woke up in a hospital room down the hall from a little girl in a coma fighting for her life because of me, because of my decisions and my actions. And that was tough to swallow, man. I remember going home. They released me from the hospital the morning of the Super Bowl. And I went home to my wife and kids, and I walk in the house, and my middle daughter, who was 5 years old at the time, same age as that little girl that I hurt in the accident, came up to give me a hug. And I just lost it, man. I broke down right there. And all I could think about was that could be my little girl in that hospital room fighting for her life because of me, because of my decisions and my actions. And so it was devastating, man. But you know, I knew I needed help. I knew I needed help really bad, and so I started looking into these rehabs, and I ended up finding a rehab out in Utah, and they wouldn't at first, they wouldn't let me fly, right? I had lost so much blood in the accident that they wouldn't clear me to get on an airplane. So for 2 weeks, I was just laid up in my bed, a shell of the man I had been just a year earlier, holding up that Lombardi Trophy in Miami. But they finally got me on an airplane, and I went out to Utah. But really, where all of it started, you know, you mentioned it was a lifelong battle. I mean, so I got introduced to painkillers my freshman year in high school. It was kind of, you know, about this time of year, we had just got done our summer lifting program. We were about to start training camp. We're in the weight room doing max outs, and I'm on the squat rack warming up, and I get halfway into a squat, and I feel this pop in my back, and I collapse. Right? Tremendous amount of pain, can barely walk, go to the doctor, get an MRI, and it comes back that I fractured my L4 vertebrae. And, you know, it's not career ending, but because of all the swelling around my spinal cord, it was very painful and very hard to walk. And so they prescribed me 2 things. They prescribed me physical therapy and Vicodin. And, you know, I didn't like that physical therapy so much, but that Vicodin, man, that was awesome. That was a game changer for me. And, you know, I could take one of those things and take all the pain away, puts me in a great mood. It allowed me to go attack that rehab a little bit harder, you know, and get better a little bit quicker and get back on the field. And so that's what I did. I got back on the field. And then the following year, I get a knee injury, and now I have to have knee surgery. And this time they send me home with 40 milligram Oxycontin. And so, I mean, listen, if Vicodin was good, Oxycontin was great. That was really the game changer for me. I take one of those, and I felt like I could conquer the world on that stuff. And, you know, I ran through that prescription really fast. And as soon as I get done that prescription, I get really sick. I mean, sicker than I had ever been before. And I thought I had an infection in my knee. So I go to the doctor. They don't really know what's going on. They send me out to get tested for everything you can imagine. I mean, mono, an infection, the flu, and it all came back negative. And what I didn't know at the time was I was going through withdrawal from opiates. And so for the next week, I laid in my bed, sick as a dog, you know, and after about a week, I start to feel better. Not great, but good enough I need to go back to school. And so I go back to school, and I'm hobbling around on these crutches, and I'm complaining to my buddies, you know, my back hurts, my knee hurts, my body aches. And one of my friends says, hey, you know, I think I got something that can help you. And he hands me these Percocets. And I take one of those Percocets, and instantly I feel like $1 million again. And so I ran through those real quick. And, you know, when I ran out of those, I called my buddy back up. I said, hey, do you have any more of those? And, you know, I went from one guy to the next, to the next, to the next. And before you know it, I'm 16 years old, and I got a drug dealer in North Philadelphia.
Jeez.
You know? And it was crazy because I had no business being down in these neighborhoods copping these drugs off a street corner. And but I figured that, you know, something dawned on me pretty quickly was these painkillers, man, these pills are expensive. And I got to figure something out because this isn't financially sustainable. And right now, I can't live life on life's terms, right? In my mind, I couldn't live without these pills. And so I figured out pretty quickly that I could sell drugs over here and support my addiction over here. And so by the time I'm 17 years old, I'm now running around the suburbs of Philadelphia slinging anything I can get my hands on. And it was a mess, man. It got bad. I had a brother 2 years older than me, right? And best friend in the whole world, right? I mean, like, we did everything together. We grew up as coaches' kids. Like I said, we moved a lot. And it never really mattered where I went because I always had my best friend with me.
Yeah.
But this guy was straight as an arrow, right? He never drank, never smoked, never did anything. He goes to college, comes home after his freshman year, and I introduce him to Oxycontin. And it grabbed a hold of him so much faster than it ever grabbed a hold of me. And he figured out the same thing I had figured out pretty quickly, that these pills are expensive. And he needed to figure something else out. And so here we are living in Philadelphia, which is the heroin capital of the United States at the time.
Right.
And he figures out that he can get heroin way cheaper, way more readily available, and a lot better bang for your buck. And so he ends up switching to heroin. And so, this is my best friend. So when he switches to heroin, now I start dabbling in heroin. Right. But the craziest thing is like no one knew what was going on. Right. I had really built this like secondary personality that I faced the world with, and I was hiding behind it. I was all-state football player, captain of the football team, straight A student, and no one knew what was going on. Him on the other hand, he didn't hide it so well.
Right.
And so it wasn't long before my parents figured out what was going on with him. And they end up sending him off to rehab. And so he's bouncing in and out of these rehabs, fighting this demon that's killing him, and it's the same demon that's got me by the throat and is slowly squeezing the life out of me.
And they didn't know that, they didn't see that in you. They just thought your brother was struggling, but not you.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Unfortunately, I was a highly functioning addict.
Yeah.
And so there were no real signs, I was excelling in everything, all the activities I was doing. I was doing really well in school, and there was just nothing there to tell them that that I was going through the same thing.
Wow.
So it was pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many questions here, and thanks for sharing what you've shared so far. I really appreciate your vulnerability around this. It really is powerful. You've got this issue going on. You're hiding it well. Your brother obviously struggling. They sent him off to rehab. What were your thoughts on that? Like, I know this is a big question because it's been a minute, but like here you see your brother needing to go get help, and I think what you even said before you had that incident with hitting the car and the girl, you said, well, my addiction's not affecting anyone but myself. Like everything's fine. I'm handling it fine. But I'm just curious on how you were navigating all that.
Yeah. I think addiction lies to you.
Yeah.
The brain is such a powerful tool. And for me, I could justify and rationalize just about anything,
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing. In my mind, I'm telling myself, well, hey, I got it all together. I'm excelling in these areas of my life. And obviously my brother's not, and he can't hide it. He can't function. And so he needs help. I don't need help. But the truth of the matter is when I looked myself in the mirror, I felt like a piece of crap. I knew what I was doing deep down inside was wrong.
Yeah.
I knew that it wasn't the best thing for me. I knew that at the time I probably didn't realize that I was giving up my goals, for this addiction. I thought that that the arrogance of addiction is, hey, I can still have it all.
Right.
But deep down inside, I knew that really probably wasn't true. And on top of that, there was a lot of guilt and shame with portraying something that wasn't true.
Yeah.
I wasn't what I was, outward facing to the world is not really who I was behind closed doors. And so there was a lot of guilt and shame with that. And over the years, that just builds up more and more and more. And by the time this was all said and done,
Yeah.
my confidence was non-existent, and I was relying on a substance to give me the strength, courage, fortitude to keep going every day and keep facing the world.
Wow.
It was something, it was really, it was my body armor. It really helped me because I knew I wasn't keeping the promises to myself, and when you don't keep promises to yourself, your confidence and it just goes out the door. And so that's,
Wow.
I know that was a long-winded answer, but
no, thank you. No, it's well said, Britt. Thank you. The part that really hit me so hard is when you came home from the hospital after the accident and you were hugging your daughter, who was the same age of the girl that got hurt. I can't even imagine what you were feeling, but it's almost as like that was the moment where you're like, okay, I've maybe in that moment felt like I've ruined my life. Here we are. I'm hugging my own daughter who could have been the very person getting hurt. Can't imagine it being her, right? So take us from there. Like that happens, and then what played out, and what did you end up having to do to deal with paying back of what you did?
Yeah, and so I went to rehab, and I believe in life, God puts messengers in our life at certain points in time to share messages with us that can truly help and benefit us in a positive way in life. But unless you have the right thinking, you can't accept these messages and apply them in your life to do just that. And so when I walked into that rehab in 2021, my thinking had finally changed, right? I walked in there with a very receptive mindset. I had been severely humbled. And unfortunately, it took me almost killing myself and another human being to finally get to that point. And listen, before that, there was a lot of chances to right the ship, and there were periods of time where I did right the ship, but I couldn't sustain it because, so I used to tell my players all the time, right, that it doesn't matter how good you are, right? I coach Chris Jones, who arguably right now is the best defensive lineman in the National Football League.
Right.
And I used to tell him all the time, it doesn't matter how much God-given talent you have. If you don't work on the basic techniques and fundamentals, right?
Yeah.
Every day, every single day, and just keep that blade sharp, right? That stuff starts falling off. And then those little things, those small details start to build up, and then they become big issues. And I wasn't practicing what I was preaching, right? I wasn't doing those little things, the little daily things, staying spiritually fit, right? Doing all my reading, praying, staying in contact with like-minded people. I wasn't being of service. And so it's when those things start to go, you're headed for a relapse. And that's what happened to me. But when I walked into that rehab, I walked in there very humbled, and I was ready and receptive to receive any message. I was ready to do whatever I had to do to right this ship. And so when I walked in there, I met this guy. I was paired with a drug counselor, this old biker dude from Philadelphia, right?
Right.
Who is like literally the most blunt person I'd ever met in my life. And he doesn't really care how things land. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks, when he thought it, and that was that. But I needed that at that time. And so I specifically remember this one time early on, I walked into his office, and he looked at me, and he kind of had this little smirk on his face. And he was like, "Man, Britt, you look like you're struggling." And I kind of laughed. I was like, "Yeah, dude, I am struggling, man."
Yeah.
Like there's a little girl, she just came out of a coma. I don't know what her life is going to look like. I don't know if she's going to recover. I've lost everything. But the thing that I was struggling with most was like, how did I get here again? Because this wasn't my first time looking at prison time.
Right.
And I remember him looking at me and he said, "Listen, Britt, we all go through hard times in life. Some of us harder than others. And you got to be able to navigate both of these, right? The good and the bad. And you don't know the good without the bad. But you got to be able to navigate both of these with some grace and humility." And then he said, "This too shall pass," right? The good times never last and the bad times never last.
Yeah.
And then he said something that really, really struck me, and he got me thinking. And he said, "I've gotten to know you pretty well here, and I know you're going to make it through this." And at this point, I didn't know if I was going to make it through it, right? Had that little girl passed away, I don't know if I'd be sitting here talking to you today. There were a lot of really bad thoughts that, hey, I don't really want to be here. If I take someone else's life, man, I don't want to be here. I don't deserve to be here.
Right.
But he said, you're going to make it through this. He said, you got a long road ahead of you. You're going to do some prison time, but you're going to make it through that. The real question is who do you want to be when you make it out the other side? And, that got me really thinking. I was like, man, I'm not sure. I mean, I know what I don't want to be, right? Like I had been to jail before. I knew what I was walking into. I knew I was walking into one of the most negative, violent environments on earth. And that negativity and violence has a funny way of slowly seeping into guys. And when they leave there, they can leave there very hardened, negative people. And I definitely did not want that. That happened to me the first time I left jail, right?
Okay.
I remember my siblings telling me, man, you just weren't the same. For a long time, you were kind of hardened and a little bit negative, and the way you saw things was not right. It wasn't how you normally see things. And so here I am now facing that same adversity, right? But this time I now have people relying on me. Like I have 3 kids, and I can't go away and come out some, negative, hardened person. But I just wasn't sure how I was going to do that, right? And so I ended up getting sentenced to 3 years in prison, right? And I remember when my first 2 weeks in prison, I was in solitary confinement, right? I was in administrative segregation in the hole, locked down 24 hours a day. And I had nothing, man. I had no books. I had nothing to listen to. I had nothing. All I had was an empty milk carton I kept off of one of the breakfast trays. And I'd put it in the corner of my cell. And I would take toilet paper and wet it and roll it into balls. And I'd just shoot these balls into this empty milk carton for hours.
Wow.
And I would just think, I thought about all the negative decisions that had led me up to this point and how I was going to make it through prison and beyond. And, the same thing kept coming back to me over and over again. It was something that had literally been in front of my face my entire life, right? I had heard my dad talk about this my entire life. And it's what I call my dad's secret sauce. It's been up in every locker room he's ever been a head coach of. I've heard him talk to our football teams about it. I can't tell you how many times. And it's his 4 pillars to success. And it doesn't matter, success on the field or in life and business, it doesn't matter. It's just, you can apply them anywhere. And so for those 2 weeks, I sat there and I kept thinking about these 4 pillars, right? And those 4 pillars are eliminate distractions, create energy, fear nothing, and attack everything. And so I sat there and I started to think about how can I apply these in my life right now in prison to make it through prison, where I can come out of this a better person, right?
Yeah, right.
And along the way, I found out a lot of other things. I learned about servant leadership. I learned about giving back, making those around you better, right? Not for your own personal sake, but to help others. Because when you can put that kind of positive energy out, the world has a funny way of giving it back to you.
Right.
And
so
a lot of the time, it comes back tenfold.
I want to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to the incredible sponsors of the Beliefcast podcast. First, Craig from Craig Swap and Associates. If you need an attorney, he's your guy. Trustworthy, compassionate, always there when you need him most. Next, Wasatch Recovery, the greatest university on the planet, transforming lives one day at a time. Sandy from Minky Couture, the creative genius behind the most comfortable blanket you'll ever wrap yourself in. Comfort like no other. Special thanks to the award-winning pianist Paul Cardall for his beautiful music that brings inspiration to every episode. Yeah.
And, the other thing that I had learned prior to going to prison, but it was really reinforced in prison was, and it goes along with create energy, right? Because I struggled with create energy. That part of it was hard for me because I'm in the most negative, violent environment on earth. And how do you create positive energy in an environment like that?
Right.
But, so the thing that was reinforced was, I didn't have a lot of choices in prison. They strip you of that, right? You don't get to choose when you eat, when you shower, when you go to bed, when you wake up. Those things are all told to you.
Yeah.
But the choice that I had was I got to choose what lens I want to see the world through.
Yeah.
I can either focus on the negative, focus on the bad in people, focus on the problem. But when I do that those negative, the problem tends to grow and get magnified. Right? But I also have a choice to focus on the good, right?
Yeah.
The good in people. I can focus on the solution, focus on the positive. And when I do that, that tends to grow and multiply.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I did, man. Like, every day I woke up, it was as simple as putting a smile on my face and radiating positive energy, right? And I remember I used to talk to my players about this too. Like, nobody wants to be around an energy vampire, right? No one wants to be around a guy that's moping around and, oh, poor me, playing the victim and like the world. No one wants to be around that. You just bring everybody else. You bring the vibe down around everybody else. And no one wants to be around that.
Yep.
But I can choose to put a smile on my face. I can choose to see the good in people, right? I can choose. It doesn't matter how bad a situation gets. You can find something positive in that situation.
Yeah.
And I'm a true believer in that. And so, I learned that, hey, what lens am I going to look through today? How do I want to see the world? How do I want to see the people around me? Even though I'm in there with some of the worst people, I'm in there with people that have intentionally murdered people, right?
Yeah.
Intentionally robbed and stole things and violated people's safety and security. But there's still something good you can see in those people. And it's never too late to change, man. Like, it's, I might be having a bad day right now, but it's never too late to start over my day. And hey, from this point on, I'm going to take a little pause. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to regroup, and I'm going to have a great rest of the day.
Love that.
And it's all a choice.
Yeah.
That is my choice, that I get to choose how I want to see the world and how I want to interpret and react to things.
I love that. I've been telling my clients the last couple of weeks this statement that a change happens the moment you decide. And it when you were in prison and you're shooting, the toilet paper balls into that little, milk carton. And it sounds like the turning point is when you kind of remembered of your dad's 4 pillars. And do you mind sharing those once again, what those 4 pillars are for our listeners?
No, it's create energy.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Eliminate distractions.
Yeah.
Create energy. Fear nothing. Attack everything.
Wow. I love that. And did you feel that change while you're there, you're in prison, and did you feel that shift of like, okay, I'm going to actually do something about this? That's what I'm hearing is, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually do something different now.
Absolutely. Nothing changes until something changes.
Yeah, right.
And in my case, that was me, and how I had to be proactive. I had to put in the reps. Again, something that I relate back to football, but it doesn't matter how good you are.
Yep.
You got to put the reps in every day. And as
Wow.
soon as you stop putting in the reps, your game declines. And
Yeah.
so I had to start putting in the reps. And
Yeah.
I also believe, the holy trinity for me is mental, spiritual, and physical, right?
Yeah.
And I got to take care of all three of those.
Yeah.
And when one of those is out of balance, everything starts to get off kilter.
Yeah.
And so I got really serious about my spirituality. Because listen, I'm in one of the most negative, violent environments on earth. I'm lower than low, and it didn't even end with going to prison. I mean, when I was in prison, my wife ended up filing for divorce,
Oh boy.
and so I remember that day relying so much on prayer and, hey, listen, big guy, I got to give this to you for today, because there's nothing I can do about this, but all it's going to do is mess me up here.
Yeah.
And I can't do that right now. And so trusting in my higher power, who I choose to call God, that was huge for me. And because for a long time, my spirituality was not in balance with the mental and physical part, and then the physical part was a big one for me. And that has played a tremendous role in my recovery. And being able to sustain that, the natural endorphins that are released when you exercise and strength train and
for sure
move your body is, it's a high in of itself, know.
It's the best depression medication.
It is, and no one wants to talk about that. But the best prescription for depression is exercise.
100%.
And so I've really dove into that, especially since I got out. And I started working out in prison because you don't really have much else to do.
Right.
You're on the yard and, hey, let's go lift some weights. Let's do some push-ups. Let's do some body squats, whatever it is. But when I got out, then I really, when I got out, I couldn't find a job, right? Here I am. I thought, so I had all these stipulations to my parole, and one of which was you got to find a job. And you only had a certain amount of time to find this job before you could possibly be violated and sent back to prison. And so, when I found that out, I said, it's not that big of a deal. I can find a job. Shoot, I coached in the National Football League. I got a college degree. Like, I'm in the city we won a Super Bowl in. And not to mention, my dad just won 2 consecutive Super Bowls in Kansas City. Like, how hard is it going to be to find a job in Kansas City? And I found out real quick that it was a lot harder than I could ever imagine. And part of that was because here I am now, a 2-time convicted felon. And people, were judging me off of what they saw on that paper. And that was something that was really hard for me to swallow at first, because for a long time I got paid a lot of money to evaluate talent and character, right? And I did it at a very high level. We put together some great defensive lines in Kansas City when I was the D-line coach. We in 2018 we had the best defensive line in the NFL. We led the league in sacks, 52 and a half sacks. Chris Jones was third in the NFL in sacks as a 3 technique, which is unheard of. Him and Aaron Donald were the only 2 guys really that ever ranked that high.
Wow.
And so, now here I find myself being evaluated on my talent and character, and people aren't liking what they see. And so it was really, really hard to find a job. But I got hooked up with this guy named Damon West, right? He's the coffee bean guy, and he's an author, one of the largest keynote speakers in the country. And he shared the coffee bean message with me, which was it really resonated with me. It was really what I was trying to do in prison. And I'll just tell you what it is real quick before I finish the story. But it's he said, Britt, life is like a pot of boiling water, and you have one of 3 options, right? You can be like the carrot, which is hard and rigid, and when you put it in that pot of boiling water, it comes out soft and mushy, and you don't want that.
Right.
You can be the egg that's got that soft, gooey inside. And when you put it in the pot of boiling water, it comes out very hard, right? Well, I definitely did not want that. And then he said you could be like the coffee bean. It's the smallest of the three. And when you put it in the pot of boiling water, it changes the water into coffee, right? It's the change agent. It's the powers inside of it to change its environment around it. And again, it resonated with me because that's really what I was trying to do the whole time I was in prison, and really what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah.
And so because I met him, he then introduces me to this lady who owns a health and wellness company, right? And she finds out that I'm looking for a job. And when I met her at the time, it was a very small company. It was only like 3.5 years old. It's an online workout subscription thing. You get workouts that you do at home, and then we have a nutrition department. And so she finds out I need a job, and she's like, "Hey, listen, I don't know." I kind of get emotional thinking about this or talking about this, but
Sure.
she said, I don't know to what capacity I can give you something, but we'll find some work for you. And she only had 4 employees at the time. And she's like, listen, we'll find some work. I would like to help you. She said, I see something in you. I think, yeah, you made a huge mistake. And you're not shying away from that. You admit it. You take accountability. And I think you're trying to do something different. And I'd like to help you out.
Dang.
And so, she ends up giving me a job. And the thing that she helped me with the most was whooping my butt into shape.
Right.
And so she helped that physical part keep going. And I remember when I first started working for her, I was probably about 255, 260 pounds. And, today I'm about 195, right?
Jeez.
And just
it's amazing.
Really educated me in the stuff that I was putting into my body. And when I put good stuff in, I get good stuff out, right? Yeah. It's no different than what I put up here. When I put bad stuff in, bad stuff comes out. When I put good stuff in, good stuff comes out. And so that was a huge part of that physical part of that Trinity, that Holy Trinity in my mind, is getting that physical balanced up with the rest of those.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's amazing. And it's great to have people out there that are willing to take a chance on us, right? We all need those giants in our lives that can kind of lead and direct us. And,
Brett, can I plug her real quick?
Please plug her. Yes.
Because she really caters to women. I mean, we have a couple men, but it's Lexi J Wellness, and unbelievable community. This whole community accepted me into it with open arms, and it's been absolutely life-changing for me. But if anyone's looking to get into shape, Lexi J Wellness, they get you right.
Shout out to Lexi, and grateful for people like her, honestly, and grateful that you found her for as a part of the journey of your recovering life. Again, you're doing all these amazing things now. You're a keynote speaker. You speak. You're helping people in such a different way now, right? Yeah. And so talk about. I mean, one of your I guess mantras, if you will, is the winning edge is in your windshield, which I think is ironic because you said when you took your eyes off the windshield, that's when you got in that accident. Did I hear that right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about what is that? What is it? I guess let our listeners know, what are you doing now? What are you doing to give back? And how did you find yourself now? Like you're speaking to teams and corporations and individuals and doing all this amazing stuff now, which in and of itself it's miraculous, honestly.
Absolutely. Yeah. The windshield thing came about because of my story. And, when there's a reason why our windshield is a lot bigger than our rear view mirror. We need a lot more room looking forward than we do looking back.
Yeah.
And that's true in life. When you live in the rear view mirror, when you live in the past, whether it's the past good things you've done or the past bad things you've done, right? you can't live your life looking backwards. That winning edge is in the windshield. What can I do from this point moving forward? That's the only thing I have control over, right? Is the here and now. And if I keep doing the next right thing from this point moving forward, right, I can change the future, and the past doesn't define me. And
Right.
that was something that I had to really wrap my mind around because of all these innocent people that I have negatively impacted in my life because of my decisions and my actions. And the two biggest ones, and I didn't mention this, but that brother that I introduced to OxyContin, he ended up ODing and dying from an opiate overdose.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I carried around that guilt and the feeling that I had killed my best friend and brother.
Jeez.
And
Wow.
and in the program of recovery that I work, I'm supposed to make amends to people, right?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to call up these people that I've hurt and harmed and tell them I'm sorry. Well, I can't call my brother or go see my brother and say, hey, I'm sorry for introducing you to the drugs that killed you. I'm also not legally allowed to contact that little girl or her family and say, hey, I'm sorry for what I did. I made a terrible mistake, right?
Yeah.
And I know I've negatively impacted your life forever.
Yeah.
I can't legally do that. If I do that, I go back to jail. And
Jeez.
so, my way of saying sorry to these people, my way of making amends is it's a living amends, right? How I live my life from this point moving forward is how I say sorry to those people. The people that I can't actually go and say sorry to. All I can do, I can't change the past. The past is the past. But what I can do is keep doing the next right thing. Be of service. Give back what was so freely given to me. Try to raise up those around me, right? And make their life a little bit better, right? Try to help them succeed. That's my goal now in life is I want to be a servant leader and help everyone around me, however big or small that may be. That's my way of saying sorry to those people and giving back. And so that's kind of where the windshield thing came from. Okay. It had dual meaning. It played a huge part in my accident and taking my eyes off the road, as I'm merging onto a highway. But it also plays a part in how I'm trying to right this ship and live my life from here on out.
Yeah, beautifully said, Britt. This is a perfect segue. I had this quote that as I was preparing for this, that I wanted to share with you because I thought this really fits you perfectly. And it's a quote by Oscar Wilde, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. He starts it off by saying, every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. And then he goes on to say, beautiful, isn't it? A reminder that we are all unfinished stories, scarred by our mistakes, yet redeemed by the hope of what's to come. It whispers that even in the darkest moments can be stepping stones to light. That redemption isn't reserved for the perfect. No, it's for the broken, the flawed, the ones who have fallen and dared to rise again. The past doesn't define you. It shapes you. And the future, that's where you'll shine.
I love that.
Right? I mean,
wow.
And you really were just saying that, my friend. Like, that's the whole windshield concept. You do have a past, right? But you're looking at things so differently now. And man, we are maybe the flawed and broken ones, but that's what allows us to put ourselves in a position so we can help other people. And here you are doing that. I mean, it really is a beautiful, as hard as it is. And I'm sure you still have some things you wrestle with, but man, what a beautiful story of just, what, I'm going to do whatever I can to give back and be that living amends.
Absolutely. Yeah. I need you to send me that.
I will. I'll send that to you. But I thought, man, awesome. I think that describes your story perfectly.
I appreciate that, man. It's, that adversity we go through, I think is our advantage, right? It's an adversity advantage.
Yeah.
And I mean, listen, we all fail. Everybody fails in life, and we're all humans. We're all going to make mistakes. And all the greatest athletes I've ever been around had one thing in common, right?
Yeah.
They weren't afraid of failure. The great thing about failure is that it's the great learning tool that we have, and all the great, whether it's in sports, business, whatever it may be, they have failed multiple times, but they learn from their failures and they come back even better.
Right.
And so, I mean, how a book starts doesn't dictate how it ends.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think it's well said. So well said on that. And, so why don't, let our listeners know, like, what does the future look like now? Like, what are your future plans? Is it continuing to do what you're doing now, speaking to people and coaching and things like that? Is that ultimately like, this is the direction you're going? Or is there other things that we would like to, hear about what you're doing?
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm focusing on the here and now, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I find a lot of gratitude and just a lot of pleasure in trying to give back and trying to help other people. And so I'm also, I'm enjoying being around my kids and help coach football teams and, just going to school activities and doing that stuff. But, I don't know where the future will take me. I'm really open to anything. I would like to go back into prisons and speak in prisons and try to bring some hope back to those people. That this isn't the end all be all. We can change, we can do something different, and we can be better. And so hopefully, when I'm off parole, I'll have that opportunity maybe to go back into prisons and share a message of hope, and then just continuing to go help young people, and whether it's high school, college, whatever. It's been awesome, and I've really, really enjoyed that.
No, that's beautiful, and I have no doubt that you'll do that. I mean, I'm sure that these opportunities will keep opening themselves up to you. And again, as I think one of the philosophies that you kind of live by is that, and I saw this on one of your posts, good people do good things for other people.
Yeah.
And that's really right. It's as simple as that.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
I have no doubt that's what you'll continue to do. If there's someone right now, Britt, that's listening to your voice, they've tuned into this and they are in a dark place, they find themselves lost, what would you tell that one person right now?
I would tell them that this too shall pass. The dark times don't last forever. And there's always a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes you're so deep into that tunnel, it's hard to see it. But if you just keep moving forward and keep doing the next right thing, eventually that light will grow. And so just stick with it and understand that this too shall pass. It will give you a better appreciation for when the good times do come. Yeah.
And you're in the midst of that, right? You were in the darkest of darks, right? Where you were. And so your advice is powerful. Thank you for sharing that. I know people have tuned into this. People all the time tune into my show because they are struggling. And so your words are going to be really helpful for them. So thank you for sharing that. One more thing I want to ask you. This is kind of a tough question, but what do you love most about you now?
Oh man. I love being able to be present with my children. That clarity of mind, spirit, body, and being able to actually be truly present when my kids are around.
Wow.
For a long time, it wasn't there. It was clouded with substances and alcohol and whatever, and today I'm living a life where I don't put anything in my body that affects me from the chin up. And that helps me to be present with my kids. And listen, I lost a lot of time with my kids, time that I'll never be able to get back, but the time that I get to spend with them now is so much more meaningful and so much more impactful than it's ever been. And that's what I love the most.
Wow. Well said. Well said. And your kids are lucky to have you. And again, they're going to also learn from what you've been through. I can speak for myself about this because, you know, I have a past as well. And I remember sharing this with my kids, and they'll tell, to this day, they're all out of the house now, but they will tell me that you were vulnerable enough, Dad, to tell us of what happened with you, that's why I've never chosen to go down that path. So I feel like that's going to be the same thing for your own children. So they're really lucky to have a dad who didn't give up.
Yeah.
And I get emotional.
I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. They're very blessed to have you. You bet. Well, you know, if someone wants to reach out to you, Britt, and to learn more about your story, learn more about your speaking and all that stuff, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can find me on Instagram, Facebook. On Instagram, it's Britt Reid Speaks. I have a website, brittspeaks.com.
Okay.
And so any of those, they can reach out to me. I'm more than willing to help, to talk to anybody, you know, engage and help wherever I can. And so
I love it. I love it. You know, part of my part-time work is I work as a counselor at Wasatch Recovery. So if you're ever here in Utah, I'd love to have you come speak to our clients here. We have anywhere from 30 to, 60 people if we count our outpatient as well. So if you're ever back this way, let me know. I'd love to have you come share your story, because they would definitely benefit from it.
Absolutely. I would love to. I'm going to take you up on that offer.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for taking some time, Britt, today. Your vulnerability really is inspiring, and I love how you just own your story. You're just owning it, and that is what authenticity feels like, sounds like, looks like. And so thank you for doing that. It means a lot to me.
Well, thank you, and thank you for what you're doing, because I know this podcast in and of itself is helping a lot of people. And I love everything that you're about, helping in recovery, helping in mental health, all that. It goes a long way, and we need more people like that.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, absolutely. I'll put all your links in the show notes so people can get right to you. And man, what a pleasure it's been to talk to you today.
Absolutely. Same. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So hang tight. I need to talk to you when we wrap this up, but I want to let our listeners know, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for believing in me and always, sharing these episodes. Today was amazing, right? You guys, I know you're shaking your heads. Yes. Please share this with your loved ones. If you have a family or a friend or a coworker who is struggling, especially maybe around addiction, send them a link to this episode. It will open their eyes, and it could be the very thing that will cause them to reach out and get some help. So I know you guys will do that because you do it all the time. I get stories about this. And so, but thank you for tuning in. I love you guys. And until next time, everyone, take care.